How many times have you heard someone say, "Oh, I can't eat that, it's so bad for me"? Or maybe even found yourself having the same thoughts? We live in a world where food gets labeled as good or bad, and personally, I find it exhausting. And as a parent, it's even more overwhelming because now you're not just trying to navigate your own food choices, but you're trying to do that for your kids and to maximize, what they're eating and they're growing and being healthy. And the problem with using this dichotomy, good and bad, and these labels, good and bad, is that it leads to undue expectations and pressure. Expectations that there is a right and wrong, and pressure to get it right all the time. And at least for me, because of that, it left me feeling like I was failing constantly. But there is a solution. Rather than thinking about this dichotomy, foods as good or bad, black or white, yes or no, instead, we can think about foods on a continuum and keep in mind that they fit into a larger picture, which is actually more important. So let's dig in. Over the years, popular nutrition advice has really shifted, sometimes feeling like a pendulum swing, quite frankly. For a long time, dietary fat was public enemy number one. And as a result, there were huge reformulations in packaged foods that took out the fat and replaced with more carbs. And what do you know? Our underlying health issues and our concerns that led to this fat is bad, they did not go away. The science changed, and all of a sudden people were now swearing off of carbs. Following dietary fads or trends and completely eliminating an entire food or food group or macronutrient profile in the hopes that that holds the key to a lifetime of health and well-being is sure to be disappointing at best, or at worst, leading you to feelings of guilt and shame and supporting a negative relationship with food. Also, when it comes to your kids, they are fickle creatures. Really, they are unpredictable eaters. Their appetite varies from day to day. And their likes and dislikes change at what feels like the drop of a hat. One day, strawberries are their favorite food and they will eat nothing but. And the next day, it's as if you're trying to poison them by putting a strawberry on their plate. Which is why focusing on a single food or that food's qualities and trying to label it as good or bad, to be eaten or be avoided, is not helpful. And the worst part, labeling foods doesn't just stress us out. It teaches our kids to feel that same sense of guilt and confusion about what they should or shouldn't be eating. We can do better. Personally, I believe, save some food additives and really, highly manufactured ingredients. There are no good and bad foods. Every food can have a place and has a place in a healthy and balanced diet. And letting go of that good versus bad mentality and that good versus bad mindset might just be one of the most freeing things you can do. I think Michael Pollan said it best. Eat food, not too much, mostly plants. So how do we take a different approach? I think it starts with seeing food for what it really is, not just as a source of fuel or a micronutrient profile, but also as a source of culture and tradition and, yes, even pleasure. Food is a huge part of how we connect with each other and with the world around us. Think about some of your own favorite food memories or your favorite meal. Think back on those. What is it? What do you remember about those foods, about those experiences eating the foods? Is it the ingredient list or the amount of protein or carbohydrates in them? I doubt it. I bet what you remember most about those foods or those meals are the way that they made you feel and the people that you got to experience them with. When we focus on the bigger picture of what food brings into our lives, we can let go of the guilt and truly enjoy eating. Okay, so rather than thinking about foods in black and white, good and bad, which again can lead to feelings of guilt and shame, instead, the solution is to make a mental shift about what food is and to think about it more holistically. But how? How do you actually make that mental shift? Here are 5 tips that have made a huge difference for me. Tip number 1, focus on the bigger picture. Again, rather than thinking about foods, individual foods, and whether or not it is serving you, whether it is good or bad, whether it should be eaten or avoided, think about your meals over the course of a day, and better yet, over the course of a week. Let yourself enjoy a mix of whole, nutrient-dense foods that really feed your body, and some of those little indulgences that you might previously have been tempted to label as bad. Let go of the guilt and enjoy those equally. To be clear, I'm not advocating for a full day or a full week of indulgences, day in and day out, week in and week out. I am an advocate for moderating all forms of food. Tip number 2, challenge your thoughts. If you catch yourself thinking, God, I shouldn't eat this. It's bad for me. I really shouldn't do this. Pause and ask yourself, do I really believe that? Is that true? Is it actually bad for me? Or is this something that I have been conditioned to think, or perhaps absorbed from our diet culture? Taking a moment to evaluate this question can help you be more mindful in your choices. Which brings me to tip number 3 on how to shift your mindset from thinking about foods as good or bad to taking a more holistic view of food, and that is to practice mindful eating. There is a lot out there about mindful eating, and I am certainly not an expert in it. But what I find helps me, and what I consider to be mindful eating, is to simply make space to try to listen to my body. When I'm hungry, I try to ask myself, what am I hungry for? What is my body craving right now? And as I'm eating, I try to take moments to pause and remember to say, how am I feeling? Am I feeling full, or would I like more? And remember, don't deprive yourself. Depriving yourself of food ultimately leads to more stress and many times leads to overconsumption later. So again, being a mindful eater can be as simple as taking a moment to pause and really ask yourself the question, am I hungry? What am I hungry for? And while you're eating, am I full, or do I want some more? Tip number 4 on how to shift from a good food, bad food mentality to one that views food as contributing to more than just your nutrient intake. Recognize, work to eliminate, and then avoid food guilt and shame. We've all had moments of having a little bit of too much, an extra slice of whatever, and leaving the table feeling more full than we would like. It's okay. Don't beat yourself up over it. Chances are, in the moment, that act was bringing you some joy, some pleasure, and it's okay that it did. And if you can recognize, oh, that's why I did that. I could have paid attention differently here. I could have made this decision differently. You are beginning the process of recognizing why you made the decisions that you did. And that can lead you to helping identify and make a different choice next time. I remind myself and my kids all the time, practice makes progress. And this mindful eating and letting go of food guilt and shame is no different. Okay, lastly, and this isn't so much a tip as it is a public service announcement, number 5, seek support if you need it. If your relationship with food feels overwhelming or it is all-consuming, know that you do not have to figure this out alone. Your doctor, a registered dietitian, a therapist, they can all help be a source of support for helping you figure out how to have a healthier, more positive relationship with food. Don't go it alone. At the end of the day, it's not just about the food itself. It's about how we treat ourselves and the messages we give ourselves and our kids. We can't expect to be perfect eaters or perfect parents, try as we might. And the good news is we don't have to be. What we do have to do is be mindful about how we show up and how we approach food, because it can have a profound effect on our mental and emotional well-being. So let's start with this. No more good food, no more bad food, just food. Because when we take that pressure off, we can focus on what really matters. Building connection, building meaning, and building healthier habits that last. Thanks for spending this time with me. I want to hear from you. What tips do you have? What do you use to be a more mindful eater? How do you think about good food, bad food? I want to know. Comment and share. Remember, no good food, no bad food, just food. You've got this. I'll see you next time.